Hello, marketing legends, and welcome to Marketing News Now with your host, James Harrold Meeker, podcasting from the Silicon Valley Hills of Austin, Texas. Today, I have a special guest joining us, CK Kumar, Edge AI whisperer, technical storyteller, marketing executive, and known for always being a shameless optimist. Most of my colleagues know CK as an AI expert and thought leader on all things marketing. I've worked almost a decade and know him to be quite a deep thinker and a high contributor on just about everything he touches. Hey, CK, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, James. That was a wonderful introduction. Now I have to live up to it.
No worries. I'm sure that'll be easy for you. Okay, tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so James, I have been working at Dell Technologies for the past 8 years or so in multiple roles. The past four of which has been primarily in the edge and edge AI solutions, which has been as you might have guessed, has been a very exciting phase across multiple industries. So I'm having a lot of fun.
Awesome, awesome. Hey, speaking of that, I know you have opportunity to get great insights on customers all over the globe on their approach in dealing with artificial intelligence. Um, and the adoption curve really varies by company and organization, but looking at where we're going, where we're headed at, and what companies are really doing with AI, where the innovation lies. What's your impression of a rollout with most businesses? Where are we?
Yeah, so before I get started and opining on these issues, let me just make sure I'm not speaking for Dell. And all these opinions are just mine and mine only, and I'll refrain from pulling in anything Dell specific on these kind of conversations, right? So having said that, the adoption is kind of all over the map. For example, one of the roles I focus on is looking at edge AI and manufacturing. And based on some of even the most recent manufacturing council reports and analysis, only about 30% of the manufacturing companies who are typically sort of the leading adopters of AI and all things AI, only about 30% of them are what they consider as mature adoption.
Mm,
And there is nearly about anywhere between another 30 to 40% are who are just looking at AI or in the early stages of adoption. So there is a long way to go.
mhm,
Uh, and one of the challenges that we will always have is the news that we always hear is always leading and bleeding edge. And so
mhm.
there's one or two key use cases that are really mind blowing, very aspirational, but they are not telling the broad market story. When I look at and talk to some of my peers who are in other industries, there is great interest in trying to leverage all the vast potential that AI has to offer, but pulling into existing legacy systems and ensuring that it is not a technology that's just getting glommed onto existing systems, but rather
Mhm.
trying to integrate and infuse into existing system. That is sort of the big challenge, right? What you typically see is when you hear these headlines, and there is always a lot of AI washing that goes on, execs get very excited, right?
Mhm.
They want to try and make sure that their teams leverage or maximize their potential using AI. But that always takes time. It just takes time, and the reason is some of it is skill set, right? Folks need to get trained. The other portion is even if you have very skilled people, how do you integrate all these interesting AI systems into existing systems? And that is a huge challenge by itself because there is the old saying, right? A known devil is better than an unknown angel.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
for folks with legacy systems, the outcome is very well known. Anything you put in, you know how to fix it. When you start introducing this new systems in there, while some of these AI tools are super useful, it kind of has huge conflicts with the existing system. So I think that's going to slow down the adoption. It'll just only delay it. It's not going to stop it though, right? And
Yeah. So it's people processes, it's technological processes. It's just not rip and roll it out.
This is true, and it's kind of interesting. Like, so yeah, I'm a huge fan of history, right? So if you have heard the term Luddite, it's actually named after a guy called Ned Ludd, right? And apparently the fictitious character, nobody knows who he is. And so during the Industrial Revolution in Britain, in England, when they were starting to bring in all the steam engines to build replace some of the hand operated looming machines, Ned Ludd and his people, they would put out big posters. They'd go into these manufacturing companies and basically set it on fire. So these were Luddites who were.
We don't want to encourage that here.
We don't. But the point is that history has a great way to think, help us frame these kind of problems, right? People get super intimidated because it's a question of livelihood, right? And rightly so, right? So if you're not able to send your kids to college and those kind of things, and you don't have a job, it's pretty intimidating for people, and it puts them on a very nervous scale.
So you mentioned a really big pivotal transition in our history with the industrial age and a big change in technology and culture. And my experience is that in our generation, transitions like moving from fiber channel 2 to fiber channel 4, or to move from 100 megabit to 1 gigabit, these would seem like simple things, but honestly, they took a decade to actually implement at scale across the industry before it became the default or the norm.
Now,
with AI, are we looking at the same kind of thing, or is there so much of an investment, so much top wind going on that we really should expect this to occur at half the time?
So if you really look at the progress of technology, and especially since 1950s, right? The amount of time taken for every single new inflection point is continuously shrunk now, right? But the systems that need to reach out a much larger, all the different facets of life, that always takes time, right? That's roughly about 15 to 20 years. But for some of the more leading edge kind of companies, they do pick it up pretty fast, right? Think, and in our own sort of professional careers, I started working in companies that barely got internet, to using browsers, to then using internet. They didn't know how to use the internet initially, and then everything was on the web, and so. But in spite of all that, it still took us about 15 years to really fully flush out the potential for your web 1.0 or 0.5 to 1.0 to 2.0, right? So these things just take time. With AI, you will probably get to some of these things faster, but this is something which is completely non-sexy that people don't think about. Is we are going to be limited by capacity all the time, and one of the big drivers of that capacity is availability of energy and electricity. And because we won't have enough of that, we will always be constrained, and then therefore we'll have to figure out how to live with those constraints. That's not a bad thing, by the way. We actually get more innovative with constraints. So I'm very, very excited to see how that will pan out.
I know a lot of folks are working on it, and for everyone listening, you heard it here first. CK, thank you for the insights on adoption with AI and how we're going. Hopefully we can check back in with you and get updates as you see new and interesting things going on in the market. CK, thank you very much. Would you like to tell everyone how to get a hold of you online?
Yeah, absolutely. As I always say, there's only one Kumar on LinkedIn. That's CK Kumar. Look me up. If you have any interesting things to chat about, DM me and we'll go from there.
All right, everyone. Thank you and enjoy. Hopefully you'll give us a thumbs up and like the podcast. Please share it with your colleagues, and we'll see you on the next episode. Know the wheel, respect the logic. Roulette looks like a simple game. Red or black, odd or even. Pick a number, place your chips, and watch the wheel spin. Behind every spin is something most players never stop and think about: the math. That's why I wrote Roulette Logic, my newest book. It's a clear, no-hype look at roulette, the probabilities, the casino's edge, smarter decision-making, well before you put your money on the table. This is not a book about promising magic systems and guaranteed winnings, but it's more about a framework to keep you in the game longer and having more fun. You'll learn how roulette actually works, its history, and the stories behind some of the largest wins at the table. Clear explanations of odds and why the house edge matters. Hey, what's new is that all of the math has been verified and complemented with artificial intelligence. I also cover bankroll, session management, and the disciplines that you need to shape every decision at the table. So whether you're casino curious, a regular roulette player, or just fascinated by risk and probability, roulette gives you the edge at the wheel. The logical thing to do before you even start thinking about your next trip to the casino is to get my new book, Roulette Logic, available exclusively at Amazon. For more information about the book, you can go to the Harrold.house website. That's HARROLD.house. It's published by Harrold House Media. It's also important to know that this book is designed for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please play responsibly and play within your means. Have a good one.